I've been doing this for a long time, and there's this idea that women are more in touch with their emotions than men are. That is not true. Women talk about their emotions more, and they're able to cry. But I don't, in my experience, I don't see evidence of that. Men and women process emotions and express emotions in different ways. And I think one of the things that has happened, and you're seeing a lot of talk about this and criticism, is that most of the psychotherapeutic community it's dominated by women. 80% of psychotherapists are women. So there is a feminine bias to it. And I think that's also part of the problem why you see a lot of pushback from men against psychotherapy or against this idea of like, get in touch with your feelings. And I had that experience in my training. That said, that's the whole game that I'm playing with people when I'm working with them is I'm trying to lead them to the place inside themselves that they're afraid to feel. Yep. Because if there's something inside yourself that you're afraid to feel, you're avoiding, and you're going to avoid anything in your life that might bring up those feelings unconsciously. And so from that place, you are not free. Yeah. And you develop a construct in your mind to rationalize all of it. And so you're in some kind of delusion and some kind of lie. So for me, it's like going into the feelings is the pathway to freedom. It's scary. And I think there's a lot of images about what that means. It doesn't mean becoming a slave to your feelings or being emotional all the time. Yeah. It means creating spaces, I think, whether it's with a group of men or in psychotherapy, to allow yourself to feel the pain. And it's really mostly the boys' pain. Like we were all little at what Tate was a little boy, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And when you hear stories about his father and how harsh he was, that must have been terrifying. I mean, he admitted it, right? It was terrifying for him. Well, what did he do with all of that fear? Like, where does it live in his body? Like, he transmuted it into something, which is great. And I think we all do have a version of that, but we forget how scared childhood is, how we're little. We're just little. I mean, go look at a 5-year-old boy and you see how fucking vulnerable they are and how you can say one little thing to them and you could destroy them. Yeah. And then you think about how hard it is to raise children.
If they respect you.
Yeah, if they respect you. But how hard it is to raise children and all the issues
if they're bound to you, if they have connection with you. If you're just somebody off the street, you also could. But
you could, but if you're a teacher or a coach or... Yeah. Children are very, very sensitive, and they're absorbing things all the time. And all children I think we all have trauma. We've all had traumatic experiences, large and small. And that's true for men. And I think that's what you're seeing in the culture, like this conversation around men. I think it gets distorted, and I don't necessarily like the frame that's put around it, like toxic masculinity and all of that. Yeah. But this idea that it would be good for men to feel their feelings, I think is correct. And I think there's an image around that is incorrect, which is you can be a badass motherfucker and stoic and provide and protect all of these masculine virtues that we think about and men feel pride about and women actually want. You can have it all. And that's what, when I'm working with men, that's what I'm trying to convince them of. That you're not giving up, you don't have to give up anything just to be willing to feel and to be vulnerable. In fact, like being vulnerable, I think is really, it takes a lot of strength to say, I'm afraid or I'm hurt. And I was really hurt by what happened, whether if you let that pain or that hurt like take you over and you act out from there, well, no, that's not great. But to be able to name it and contain those feelings without shame, I think is a kind of mastery.
Yeah. And then you can also take the leveraging the I'm hurt or the, self-victimization as a tool to be able to navigate the world with.
Yes.
To be able to guilt people or cause people, to actually give you power. And so it's like, is a person, this is kind of Tate's perspective based off of, I'd imagine, feeling manipulated by someone at some point in his past that was meaningful. He suggested in the interview that he has a distrust of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone cries, he doesn't have empathy for someone crying. He doesn't have like, I don't know if that's totally true. He doesn't have empathy, but he's like, I won't be able, if someone can rationally, logically, pragmatically break down how they're feeling and what's happening,
yeah.
I'm able to trust that.
Yeah.
But if someone comes to me with, they're emotional and they're crying and all of that, like,
yeah.
I can't trust that.
Well, that is, I mean, I said that in the interview, that's a projection.
Yeah.
That's your own projection. That's you shame and judge your own feelings, so you shame and judge them in others.
Right.
Especially with a woman. Women are going to cry.
They're
they're going to come to you with your problems. They're going to be irrational at times. I'm not saying women are irrational, but in that state, they can be, and your job is to be with them there.
Yeah.
And hold space for them there.
His belief is all the emotions are manipulation.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reality, I would suggest, a percentage of emotions can be a manipulation. And the
you
person
can use them
experiencing
to
the emotion,
manipulate.
Yeah, and the person could be manipulating themselves.
That's right.
And expressing out just through, like, trickling back from that or down from that. It's like they're manipulating others because they're actually, in fact, manipulating themselves.
Yeah.
Within
That's 100%.
Within their web of emotion.
Well, if you're making yourself a victim, you are using your emotions to manipulate either yourself or others. It's really that simple. Like, you can feel your feelings without making yourself a victim. You just take responsibility for them. Like, and that's really the end game. Okay. Like, my dad wasn't around. My mom was a little crazy at times. She was young and overwhelmed. And I got hurt, and I can spend my life blaming them for the pain and suffering that they caused me. But that time has come and gone. I mean, that pain now belongs to me, and so I have to take responsibility for it. They did their best. I sincerely believe that. So it's really about that. Like, I have pain. Like, I'm angry. And the more you can take responsibility for that, the less reactive you're going to be, and the less that you're going to use your emotions to I mean, it's interesting that you said that, to manipulate yourself or to manipulate others, but also most people are afraid to feel. They're terrified to feel. I mean, the only thing you're actually afraid of is feeling. If you're not afraid to feel, what are you actually afraid of? I understand, okay, a lion jumps out and wants to kill you, but just emotionally in life, like I think most people are afraid a lot of the time. Just because life is scary. We're afraid that we're not going to get what we want. We're afraid that people are going to judge us. We're afraid that we're going to be excluded. We're afraid that we're going to be alone. We're afraid that we're not going to be able to be loved. And I think that is like underneath a lot of what's going on in the world. And so that's a very hard thing to acknowledge and admit. But most people, because of their childhood, have some part of themselves that they believe is bad. Because we all had aspects of ourselves that were either not seen or ignored or judged or shamed or made bad or wrong. And so because we have a priority to stay connected and in favor with our caregivers, that's our best survival strategy, we separate from those parts of ourselves. And we make them bad and wrong. And then that's a secret that we walk around with. It's all in the unconscious. So most people are walking around believing that there's some part of them that is bad. And then they're compensating for it. And that's the mask. And that's why, when you're with people, you can feel that place where they're not fully authentic. And I think that's true for all people. I don't know that anybody is fully authentic all the time. And in that place, that's what they're hiding, that's what they're protecting. And very often, as I said, they're hiding it and protecting it from themselves.